Guys, before we get into today's review, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel if you don't mind. We would really love it and appreciate it. To do so, you can click the subscribe button, which is down there somewhere, or you can click this button right here on my face, and that is a good way to subscribe. Now, without any further ado or taking up of your time, here's the show. Then that fresh... What's up guys, Brandon here from Gearist.com. Today we're going to be taking a close look at the Vazee Pace from New Balance. Earlier this year I took an in-depth look at the New Balance Fresh Foam Zante, a review which you can see right here. I really love the Zante and it remains one of my favorite shoes to get out and run in. So I was really interested that when New Balance sent us the Vazee Pace to review, which replaced the original New Balance 890, I was interested to see where a shoe like this, based on its description, would fit into the New Balance lineup. The description reads like this: set a record, break it, repeat. Get ready to reach all new speeds in the Vazee Pace. Engineered for relentless pursuit of faster, this lightweight, award-winning running shoe delivers the snappy, responsive ride required for all the miles you have planned for it. While I certainly haven't set any records in the shoe, which I cannot blame on the shoe at all, it is certainly a shoe that fits that bill and really needs to be on your feet. So let's break it down. The outsole of Vazee Pace begins with a full contact platform, which you can see right there. No big gaps where there's an arch cut out on the medial or lateral side. So this thing is fully in contact with the ground, front to back, beginning to end, which makes for a very fast transition from either that midfoot or rear foot into the forefoot, so it makes it smoother through the gait cycle as you go. The rubber which we see on the outsole is really well segmented. It's got kind of big blocks, but it flows really nicely into the flex grooves that we can see here, with some major flex grooves here, here, and here. This is going to make particularly the front portion of the shoe very, very flexible, but that actually also spills over into the midfoot a little bit. While it does have a little bit of rigidity in the rear foot, midfoot, that's actually going to make for a little bit more responsiveness, which we'll talk about in the ride section. In the roughly 40 miles I have on the Vazee Pace, there's very little wear to speak of on the outsole. Now, I chalk this up to a couple things. One is probably the overall build quality, which New Balance is known for. The second thing is these really actually quite large landing areas, which we can see here. These are not small lug type things, but these are big pads to land on. Now, assuming you've got a very clean gait, I think that I have a pretty clean gait, you're going to really get a lot out of that, because this almost encourages you to land on the ground with your entire foot, and it looks like that really adds up to a very durable high mileage trainer or racer. Moving into the midsole for the Vazee Pace, New Balance has welcomed back their popular RevLite foam. RevLite is a light, responsive, and resilient foam, more firm than that which we would see in something like the Fresh Foam Zante. As I mentioned in the outsole section above, those flex grooves continue into the midsole and provide a good deal, like a really great amount of flexibility in the forefoot, probably the front half or third of the shoe itself. This is a really responsive foam that does not sag when you ask it to go, and it really gives a lot of nice pop. The stack heights on the Vazee Pace come in with 22 millimeters of stack in the heel and 16 millimeters of stack in the forefoot for a net drop of 6 millimeters. While this is not the closest to the ground shoe in the world, it gives a nice base with that RevLite foam that we've got here, as well as these very large pads that I mentioned earlier. These combine to give you a very, very solid feel and really responsive ride on the ground. The upper of the Vazee Pace incorporates two main forms of mesh. The front half of the shoe, as you can see here, is a much more open mesh. I'm not sure if the camera is going to focus on that. And then the back half is actually a little more closed and foam backed. In both instances, the interior of the shoe actually has a finer screening that's going to keep out a lot of debris and things like that. Not that much would be able to make it through this anyway. If you're someone who likes to run sockless, the interior of the shoe is very, very comfortable and you should have no problem. I didn't do any runs in this barefoot, but it did feel very good when I'm just kind of walking around in it. Where the Fresh Foam Zante had quite a bit of stretch in the front half of the shoe, the Vazee Pace has very, very little, but it still manages to move really well with the foot. Part of this, I think, is the little bit of stretch that it does have, but another part of it is there's a little bit of stretch in these laces, which we can see here. I'm actually curious that if I took it out, how much stretch it would have overall, because you can see here, this is slack, that's probably a ½ inch, so there's probably 6 or so inches of stretch when you if you were to take the lace out and stretch it out altogether. The support structure on the upper of the Vazee Pace is a combination of microfiber overlays and TPU overlays, both of them bonded. And in a couple places, there's a little bit of stitching involved, but mainly only two places. The first is right here where the logo comes up, and then it kind of comes up down here into the vamp. And then again, around the backside here, which we call the deconstructed heel, which we'll get into in just a second. Both of these areas of stitching are completely out of the way. And once again, to speak about the inside of the shoe, New Balance has decided to go with their no-sew interior booty like they did with the Fresh Foam Zante, and I really love it. It's a great, fantastic complement to this shoe, especially when you get to putting the screws to it. It really feels like the shoe is, again, cradled by the upper. As I mentioned a second ago, we have this thing called the deconstructed heel counter, which we can see right here. Now, a heel counter is generally a single piece of rigidity, kind of an internal piece, and then the mesh overlays that internal piece, whether it's rigid. Of course, there are different varying degrees of rigidity. In this case, they've broken it down to its core elements. Number one, this lower piece right here, which is kind of starting here, it's a little bit rigid to right about there. This is really aiming to form the good solid heel cup, while the upper part is a very, very flexible mesh, which you can see there that bends and gives, and this part is actually meant to keep the foot in place within the shoe. Now for my foot, this worked absolutely perfectly. I had no problems with fit whatsoever, and I've actually seen some people with more narrow feet have no problem at all. However, there have also been instances with people of narrower feet having a little bit of a hard time finding exactly how to kind of cinch this down enough to really hold on to the backside of the shoe. So I would recommend, if you're trying this on, if you're ordering it online, try it on and give it a run before you make a real hardcore decision on that. Rounding out the upper, there's a good amount of 360-degree reflectivity on this, which I really like because I do plan on putting some miles on this as the days get shorter this winter. And also the amount of foam in the tongue is fantastic. Now this seems like a weird thing to mention, but you guys know me. I hate overstuffed tongues, and this is a really, really great amount. Very solid, not overstuffed, not super minimal or anything like that, and protected my foot really well and really complemented the nice stretch to the laces. Just like the Fresh Foam Zante, that interior booty construction does a nice job of just holding the foot in place and not really cramming down on it like you might need to do in some shoes with less of a kind of finesse inside. This is especially nice when you get the speed up there. When I was doing a tempo run in this, for instance, the foot just stayed in place really well instead of having a bunch of slide around. And this really complements that amount of toe box room that I've got up there, which is actually even more in this shoe than it is in the Zante. Now, of course, in the Zante, you've got some stretch. In this, you don't have as much stretch, but there is a great amount of toe room for wiggle and splay and all that kind of stuff, which is fantastic. Again, that deconstructed heel counter worked perfectly for me. I have nothing negative to say about it. It just fit really, really well. But again, be willing to play with lacing setups if it doesn't feel right the first time right out of the box, because it would be a shame if something like that was the reason that you weren't able to run in this shoe. From a sizing perspective, the Vazee Pace falls right within industry standard sizing, and added bonus for those of you out there with a wider foot, this also comes in a size 2E width option. One thing I'd also mention is that if you do have a narrower foot but you still want to run in this, keep in mind that you can run in the women's version if you're a guy, and likewise if you're a woman and you have a wider foot, you can run in the men's version. The way that works is a 1.5 size conversion. So if you're a men's size 9, that means you're going to be a women's size 10.5. I should also mention here the weight of this shoe, which for me in this size 11 comes in at 9.1 ounces, which is only 0.3 ounces heavier than the Zante. It would be pretty easy to chalk much of that up to probably the denser foam down here, but maybe also some additional supports in the upper. But either way, the weight is really, really solid. The ride of this was one of the trickiest spots for me to review, to be honest. On its own, the Vazee Pace is a really lightweight shoe that has a good amount of ground feel and great responsiveness. Even on slow days, recovery days, and things like that, I don't feel like I'm being pushed to really go after it. However, when you want to turn it on and actually go, this shoe is fantastic in response. I think part of that is that more rigid rear foot that I talked about there, but part of it again is that RevLite foam. It's a little more firm than the Zante, but it definitely gives you a lot of response. For me, this is not a shoe that I would limit to any race distance. I would feel perfectly comfortable running in this in a 5K up to a marathon and maybe even beyond. Again, it's a personal preference thing. If you're running in the Zante, or you have run in the Zante in the past and you felt like it was a little too soft, this is going to be a shoe that you really should check out. If you were to ask me straight up which of these shoes I prefer between the Zante and the Vazee Pace, to be very honest, I would not be able to tell you. Both shoes are lightweight, both shoes are responsive, and both can take you the distance. What I think it's more indicative of is the great direction that New Balance is heading in. You know, the Zante is our shoe of the year, but if I'm being totally honest, the Vazee Pace should be right there with it. The final thing that I'll mention that makes this even more appealing is its price tag, which comes in at a really nice $110, and we've actually found it for less, about $100, if you check the buy links down in the description. Now, our question for you guys today is, assuming you've tried the Zante and the Vazee Pace, which one do you prefer? Let's hear it in the comment section down below. Now, if you like this review of the New Balance Vazee Pace, don't forget to like and favorite it. That would be a humongous help to all of us here at Gearist. Guys, thanks so much for joining us for a few minutes today, and if you've got any questions about this or any of our reviews, please don't hesitate to drop us an email by emailing info@gearist.com. As always, you can also find us on all of our social media outlets, including Gearist.com right here. You got Facebook, you got Twitter, you got my personal Strava up there at the top, and right down there in the corner is how you subscribe to this YouTube channel, which is how we keep going. So please subscribe, show us some love, leave some comments, share the video, and thank you guys so much. Don't forget all the series that we've got going on, including Steve Runs a Marathon, Baby Gearist, unboxings, and all those kind of things like that. If you have something that you'd like to see us review, definitely let us know and we'll see what we can do about it. Once again, you guys, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us today, and we'll see you next time.